Trump administration memo that had such far-reaching impact, the one that froze federal aid, including grants and loans, putting programs in limbo, programs such as Meals on Wheels and Head Start. Today, the memo detailing the federal funding freeze was rescinded. You'll recall the White House so strongly defended the same memo yesterday, saying it was not confusing, even though lots of Republicans on Capitol Hill were befuddled. There was even an adamant defense yesterday from White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller right here on The Lead.
The OMB guidance memo, if you read it, is as clear as day.
It's pretty broad
my point is,
and confusingly written. Parts of it are about DEI, parts of it on all disbursement. If the memo was so clear as day, why, of course, did the White House rescind it today? The answer, it was not clear as day. Just a few minutes ago, President Trump blamed the news media for the confusion.
As was explicitly stated, this in no way affected Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, or other entitlements that Americans depend on. And I'm restating right now to correct any confusion that the media has purposely and somehow, for whatever reason, created Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid have not been affected by any action we're taking in any way, shape, or form.
So here's the thing. He's right about Social Security and Medicare being explicitly stated it wouldn't affect it. But questions of whether the freeze impacted Medicaid and other programs, that was not clear. Let's just stick with Medicaid. State Medicaid portals yesterday stopped working, briefly jeopardizing payments. And when the new White House press secretary was asked yesterday, does this freeze impact Medicaid? Here's what happened.
It wasn't clear to me whether you were saying that no Medicaid would be cut off. Obviously, a lot of this goes to states before it goes to individuals and so forth. So are you guaranteeing here that no individual now on Medicaid would see a cutoff because of the pause?
I'll check back on that and get back to you.
It's not the news media that prevented her from answering that question that the news media asked. Let's bring in CNN's Jeff Zeleny at the White House. Jeff, all right, reset. Where are we? Is there any clarity on where this whole ordeal stands and what the freeze applies to?
Jake, let's start with the bottom line. The bottom line is that one of President Trump's biggest uses of presidential authority has just been tested. The White House is reversing course on the action from Monday night that imposed this sweeping pause on $3 trillion of programs. As you said, not Social Security or Medicare, but housing programs, so many other things really across the federal government. Today, the Trump administration decided to rescind that. Of course, this comes after a federal judge ruled last evening that he was going to put a temporary pause on all of this, sending this entire matter to court as early as next week. That is what the Trump administration was hoping to avoid. A legal battle right now, at least, that is essentially a review on these programs, but also a bigger test on the president's executive authority. There's no doubt that this is the biggest walk back, the biggest reversal so far in this administration. It's almost reminds me, at least, of the travel ban in the first Trump administration when there was a chaos that ensued with that widespread travel ban, which was rejected by the courts. However, this does leave in place the executive orders the president signed last week, which he says is intended to effectively weed out the woke ideology, DEI programs in foreign aid and the like. But it does not give them the authority to change the programs already approved by Congress. So the bottom line here is, after hearing from so much backlash from Republicans and Democrats alike, Republicans were hearing from their constituents as well about local programs. This was on the front page of virtually every local newspaper across the country, about university funding, about grant funding, Pell Grants, etc. The White House heard that and decided to rescind that memorandum from Monday. So the executive orders for the idea of these imposing the president's will remain in place, but the funding, the sweeping funding review does not.
Joining us now, CNN's Phil Mattingly. Phil, should the leaders of all these programs that rely on this federal funding still be worried, or is it all over but the crime?
I think the acute concern about a freeze either currently being in place, maybe being in place, confusion about if it's in place, is now gone. That memo that was sent on Monday night that was officially rescinded a few hours ago today was what caused all of this from a wide-scale perspective, particularly for government programs that rely on government assistance that are not direct payments, pass-throughs, states and localities, obviously, excuse me, the assistance programs we were talking about throughout the show yesterday. Those are now, shouldn't be worried if you're involved in those. Now, I should caveat that with there is still a very extensive review that has been instructed for all of these agencies looking into the programs. And I think this is where there's been a little bit of point of conflict over the course of the hour or two since the rescinded memo occurred, which is the White House is saying we didn't rescind the funding freeze. The funding freeze is still in place. People are saying, well, okay, these two things can't actually be true. They are. What the White House is referring to is President Trump's initial executive orders related to DEI, related to foreign assistance, and related to a large-scale kind of energy omnibus executive order that included pulling back any Inflation Reduction Act funding, the Biden energy law, that they possibly could. Those are still in place. Those were in place before this all started, this kerfuffle,
right,
if you will, started on Monday night. Those are still in place. The reviews around every other program, there's a memo that had a spreadsheet, 2,600 plus programs underway. Those reviews are still ongoing, and the agencies still have to report back their findings if any of those programs overlap or run counter to any of Donald Trump's policy priorities on those executive orders. Then we have to see what they're going to do. But to your broader question, which is the most important one today, for so many people, you've heard from them, I have as well, the White House making explicit through this OMB memo, there is no longer or should not be considered a wide-scale full freeze on all federal assistance. One thing I would just say is, despite what the White House says, this was not something the media invented or made up. The memo itself, all 2 pages of it, was explicit that it applied to all programs, that the temporary pause applied to all programs. The only caveats were actually listed in the memo: Medicare and Social Security, and individual payments, or payments to individuals through these programs. As you know well, most of these payments go out through states and localities,
For
through
Medicaid
other
and
different
other programs, yeah.
That's where the confusion came from. That is now gone.
Yeah, and they blamed it on the news media, and I'm certainly perfectly willing to take our lumps.
Sure.
But the people that were being confused by holding up the memo. That's what they were.
And those people were the federal program administrators, the people who do this for a living.
And Republicans on Capitol Hill.
Right.
All right, Phil Mattingly, thanks so much. In the middle of this back and forth about that memo, a group of nonprofits sued the Trump administration. Late yesterday, a federal judge temporarily blocked part of President Trump's plan. Let's bring in Dr. Georges Benjamin, Executive Director of the American Public Health Association, which is part of the lawsuit that filed the Trump administration against the initial freeze. Dr. Benjamin, what was your reaction to hearing today that the memo was rescinded?
Well, we were pleased that the memo got rescinded, but we recognize that this was not over. And now that we know that the memo's been rescinded, we're now seeing evidence of now what they are going to do, because they sent out a second memo to many of the state and local health departments, now targeting specifically DEI programs that they've now ordered to stop work. That just happened in the last hour.
Where do today's clarifications leave the organizations in the lawsuit that you're part of?
I think in many cases it still leaves with some degree of confusion, because they've not gotten guidance as to whether or not, if they continue work on these programs, they'll get paid. So there is still a great deal of confusion, although you can go into the payment system and you can find your grant now, which you couldn't for the last 24 hours.
Can you tell us more about the memo that you just received?
Yeah, it says on the Department of Human Services letterhead, it says, "Dear recipient, the CDC award is funded in whole or in part with United States government foreign assistance funds to implement the executive orders ending racial and wasteful government, DEI programs, and preferential and initial recession of harmful executive orders and actions. You must immediately terminate, to the maximum extent possible, all programs, personal activities, or contracts promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion at every level and activity." So the challenge here, of course, is that they've identified the grants that they believe are DEI, and they've sent this out to health departments. The question is, which grants are they specifically talking about? Or should the health departments still assume that all the grants that they have are under this termination? I would argue this is an illegal termination because, you know, this is a bilateral contract, and I don't believe they can do it the way that they've done it.
Okay, so the lawsuit continues. All right, Dr. Georges Benjamin, thank you so much. Appreciate it.